Good evening, everyone. Coming to you live from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm Scott Harrison, Artistic Director of Ironweed Productions, and I want to welcome you to Talking Theater Live. Talking Theater Live is a series of conversations between me and Santa Fe theater artists, sharing stories about their experiences in the theater and the unique paths that led them to doing theater in Santa Fe. I'm very honored to have tonight as my guest Santa Fe actor and writer Quinn Fontaine. Quinn, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is special, man.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
So just a little bit about Quinn. Quinn is an out and proud transgender guy who has a background in all things expressive: stand-up, sketch, improvisational comedy, installation work, and found object sculpture. He began his studies in communications media at Simmons College in Boston, continued his education studying performance video at the California College of Arts in Oakland. Oh, hey, Jeff. Jeff joined in on the live video here. Quinn's first ever one-person show, Learning to Stay, was selected for fellowship at the Global Center of Cultural Entrepreneurship. Quinn's first book, Hung Like a Seahorse, a real-life transgender adventure of tragedy, comedy, and recovery, made multiple bestseller lists. And his companion piece, which is actually going to be running at Warehouse 21, August 23rd through the 26th, Hung Like a Seahorse, the show and tell version, is Quinn's first solo show since transitioning. It's a comic foray into Quinn's journey thus far. Quinn, thanks again for joining me tonight. And I wanted to I love to start at the beginning and just wanted to ask you what your earliest memory or memories are as a child of being captured by the imagination or the power of make-believe.
Oh, I love that question. Well, I spent most of my childhood either outside playing, and I was like the producer in the neighborhood. I was like, hey guys, here's what we're playing. I was very bossy, like producer, director type. And it was often it was all girls, and I would have all of us playing boyfriend, girlfriend. And till a certain age when they're like, time out, why are we always playing boyfriend, girlfriend, and then we're all girls? I'm like, I'm trying to live out my reality through this. But we'd play Happy Days, and I'd be the Fonz, and
Wow.
But we would do school, community plays that we'd put on in the basement and have tickets and bring the families. But my sister always says, she's like, you don't remember your childhood because you spent it locked in your room making arts and crafts. I've always I grew up rather poor, and I've always loved dumpster diving to one extent or another. Right. Other people's trash, take it home, clean it up, and reinvent it. Yeah. And I still do that with found object sculpture. I love that kind of thing. So that's to answer that question. Yeah. But the other piece around, you didn't specifically ask this, but I remember the first time I knew I was really funny.
Oh, yeah?
That power of knowing you're funny. Because I became the class clown early on. Right. And growing up in rural Virginia in the 70s and 80s, knowing I was a boy in the wrong body. These are my words. Mm-hmm. A lot of my trans brothers and sisters, gender nonconforming brothers and sisters don't use this vernacular. I do. Yeah. I knew I was a boy in the wrong body who liked girls. I also knew, based on everything I was seeing around me, that I couldn't talk about that. There was no 1-800 helpline for people like me. The word transgender didn't exist yet. They only had on the spectrum of LGBTIQQ7531. I like to play with that. It changes hourly. They only had the L and the G. They had only recently started adding the B for bi. So it's been a long time coming. But I'll never forget that moment. I think it was third grade, sitting in class on the floor, the teacher's reading, and then she says something like, boys and girls, who knows what the Statue of Liberty's tablet says? I shot up my hand. She called on me. My name was Kathleen at the time. Kathleen, I said, it says made in France. And she said, she did not like it. I somehow stole her thunder. I ended up spending the rest of the class standing in a small trash can in the middle of the classroom.
Oh, no.
But I felt what it felt like. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And like I said, I did become the class clown out of being funny, but also realizing that if I can make the kids laugh and kind of control when they're laughing, then I know they're not laughing at me. Right. They're not pointing at me for being different. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it became a self-defense mechanism on some level to be funny. Right.
And you've done stand-up, is that right?
I've done stand-up.
Now because I've never done stand-up and I've never done solo, a solo show.
Yeah.
What, Compared doing stand up to like a solo show.
Well, first of all, let me say this. I've also done a lot of drugs. There's no drug like stand-up when it works, and there's no drug like stand-up when it doesn't work. I'm talking upper and downer. It's you're higher than anything when it works. When it's magic, when the crowd is with you, when you're even doing your set but riffing because you know you can improv a little bit, and they go with you, and they take that journey with you. There's nothing like it. But I've been on a bunch of stages where it is silence. They do not get me. I mean, I was just telling a friend recently, I entered some random contest and flew out to Ohio for a stand-up comedy contest. It was like 600 people in an Elks Lodge on a lake. It was just, they didn't get it. It was the quietest show I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
And I left the stage thinking, well, I did it. I showed up, I did it, I honored my commitment, and I don't think I'll ever enter another contest. Well, two women kind of came around, and as they saw me leaving the building, they came around and said, you're wonderful, you're a genius, they just don't get it. And I said, that's okay, you don't have to be nice. They're like, we're not being nice. We get it. We're thinkers. And I said, I'm not judging, I just know this isn't my venue.
Right.
And I knew early on, I did a lot of stand-up, but I knew comedy clubs weren't my gig. That was not my place, nor did I feel safe in comedy clubs.
Yeah.
They're kind of dark, they're kind of, cis hetero. I was already different enough, and, I didn't transition. I'm only coming up on 4 years into my transition, but it wasn't a comfortable vibe. Yeah.
Now, how about, how does doing like a solo show, how does that compare to doing stand-up?
There's no comparison because, well, for me, there's no comparison. This was my third solo show. Yeah. I've done each show. Initially, I did the show as a very cathartic experience. It was called Learning to Stay. And it was literally 2 years into my journey of recovery around crack cocaine, sex and love, addiction, recovery from all kinds of stuff, pills, pot, alcohol, pretty much everything except gambling, and major, major trauma. And 2 years into that journey of healing, I did my show, Learning to Stay, and it really meant learning to stay on the planet, not kill myself, because I've dealt with suicidal ideation since the age of 11. It meant learning to stay in my body and not dissociate, because most of my life was spent dissociated. I don't remember my childhood before 11. I've really pieced it together through photographs. And I want to introduce everybody to this little fly.
Yes, exactly.
It's actually my pet. I'm not quite ready to have a dog, and cats aren't my gig. So I have a little fly. His name's Charlie. He's very nice. He's very sweet.
He's very cuddly.
He's very touchy-feely. And then, so learning to stay on the planet, not kill myself, learning to stay in my body, not dissociate, and learning to stay with my feelings as best I could, moment to moment. And that show was done because I needed to get it out of my body. It was a cathartic experience. Yeah. And I've had the privilege, I'm super lucky, my director is one of my best friends, and we've worked together for 25 years now.
That's great.
So she's directed all 3 of my shows.
Yeah.
And so she plays in the last 2 shows. The last show was Kathleen Fontaine, The Man, the Mystery. That was my last show as Kathleen. And just a side note, if you do have trans friends, I'm saying this to anybody watching, trans or gender nonconforming friends, not everybody is open about their birth name. I don't mind it. I was Kathleen for 47 years. I can say it openly and honestly. A lot of people in that demographic call their birth name their dead name. So they don't want to hear it. So I'm different in a lot of ways, and that's just one way I'm different. But Susan played in Kathleen Fontaine, The Man, the Mystery, which was my second solo show, exploring the cultural gender divide as I see it, my recovery from sex and love addiction, and my identity as a trans person. She played the world's worst therapist off stage. So we brought that character back for Hung Like a Seahorse.
Right.
Love that banter. And all those scenes, those 3 runners are improvised. That's 25 years of her knowing me and my buttons. And we know some things we want to hit, but there's a lot of
interesting.
Yeah.
So she's actually up.
She's up there.
Doing,
she's up there with a mic.
That's cool.
And I know her so well that I know when she's doing this to not laugh, and then coming back to it.
That's great.
It's fun.
Wow.
It's fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Shout out to Susan Mealy. I love you.
Nice. Well, and so your first solo show was. So it was just that kind of thing. I'm like, I just need to tell this story. I just need to tell this story.
Yeah, and it was very well received. I mean, and what's been interesting, Scott, is that my demographic for my audiences is so mixed. Not just in ethnicity, as much as we can do here in Santa Fe, but ages. My age for learning to stay for the live show was someone brought a baby. That doesn't really count. That was kind of weird. But a 7-year-old who loved it and then watched the DVD over and over and over. And it's heavy duty material with a lot of comic relief, but it's mostly heavy duty. So 7 to 98 for the first show. The last show, Hung Like a Seahorse at Adobe Rose, the audience age range was 11 to 85. So that's telling me something.
Yeah.
And the feedback I'm getting from people, my shows aren't just about being trans. It's about my journey. But it's mostly about the human story.
Right.
Is that we aren't our story. I don't have to stay on this planet and just have on my big forehead victim for the rest of my life. No. Yeah, I was a victim of pre-verbal childhood sexual abuse at the hands of my dad. That's a pretty gnarly welcome to the planet. But I became a survivor. And now I'm a thriver.
Right.
And I tell my story openly to help lead other people back to healing
Right.
and back to their authentic power and truth.
Yeah, because I saw the show at Adobe Rose and I loved it. It was life affirming. It was hilarious, poignant, really thought provoking, just a deeply human experience. And for me, what I carried away from it was that feeling of the power of just celebrating who you are. Which I think it's so cool to hear how many the variety of ages and people that are coming to your show, because it's a universal. It's a universal message.
Thank you.
Wow, and I'm curious. Now, when you did it at Adobe Rose, that was your first time in front of it. So you're doing it now at Warehouse 21. After 4 or 5 months have passed. What did you learn from the first time of that show in front of an audience, and is the show evolved in certain ways since
The show is going to be tighter. It's going to come in at a running time of 120 tops. I'm aiming for 115. There'll still be some. I really love the freedom to talk to the audience and to make it that palpable and that real and that in the moment, and that's special. So it's different each show. I like that a lot. It's really hard for me to work with a script. I'm creating the script backwards from the video of the last show because I'm not a writer per se. Yeah, I wrote a book, but I wrote a book because I sat down to write my third solo show, which I only had the title Hung Like a Seahorse. Nothing came, nothing beyond writer's block. So I contacted friends that I know from my spiritual community in Los Angeles who had moved to Vermont, and I stored it in the back of my head that they started a production company or a publishing company. And they also do production stuff. But I called them and I said, hey, can you pull a book out of me? They said, that's exactly what we do. So I'm not a writer per se. They took ghostwriting to the nth degree. And what they did was had prompting questions. So I did 8 to 10 hours worth of phone calls with prompting questions, and I answered. Then they sent me the transcript. They sent it to me. I read the first paragraph, and I threw it right in my file cabinet and didn't look at it for a month. I thought it was caca. That's from the Latin cacacoria cacatarius, meaning. And so they reached out and they said, hey, how's the editing going? I said, I probably should have told you it's not going. And they said, what do you mean? I said, it's crap. They said, Quinn, how much did you read? I said, I read the first paragraph. They said, listen, we get that you're insecure. We get that you're scared. Trust us. Trust us that this is good, and that it needs to come. Let it come through you. Be the messenger. And so I could get out of my own way and believe them, but it still was I relapsed. Actually, I had 20 months sober and relapsed right before the book came out. I was so scared of being judged and seen, because it had the potential to reach the most people, and it did. It actually made international bestseller lists on Amazon within 48 hours in a couple markets. So that fear was real. And it was only on beer, and I don't want to say only, but, I had to start over with my sobriety. I just celebrated a year on August 3rd. I've got almost 12 and a half years off crack cocaine, working a rock-solid program in sex and love addiction. I was a chronic, and the key word is was, because if you're out there struggling with any addiction stuff, it's never too late to surrender fully. It was so hard for me to trust, and I had so much residual self-hate and fear of just being on this planet. Nothing made sense. My body, my story. I thought I was my story. I didn't know how to detach from my story. But I finally put together a year off alcohol on August 3rd. So that feels pretty great.
Yeah, that's great.
And I know it's for me, I know for this alcoholic addict, it took transitioning to be able to be in alignment, mind and body, for the first time ever. And so I'm able to be consistent. I'm able to get out of bed every day. You know, I could be life of the party or go to sleep for 6 weeks. No joke. That would be clean and sober. I didn't know how to do all the spectrum of human emotion is wide and huge. I didn't know how to do all of it.
Yeah.
And I'm learning now, and it's never too late. And that's one of my biggest messages is for people. It's never too late to be your authentic self, whatever that means. For me, it meant transitioning. It can mean getting clean and sober. It can mean finally saying, what is my passion? I have no idea, right? Because we live in this culture where a lot of people think if you ask them what their passion is, like, I don't have time for that. Because they're busy surviving. I get it. They've got kids, they've got a job, they've got a house, they've got a mortgage, all that stuff. But I believe in a world, and again, there's no reason, Scott, that I should be an optimist. And I'm an optimist. I love people. I'm so grateful I'm here. I'm so grateful I have a 17th chance at life, not a second. You know, I'm finally showing up for life, and I'm taking this. I'm taking it, and my prayer, if you will, is use me. I'm here. I was tempting death for years, and I finally have chosen life. Use me. Help me be of service to lead other people back to their truth so that we can have more and more people brightly lit from the inside out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
How often are you out just going random errands, going to the store, grocery store or something, and you're like the brightest light in the store, and you're like, I'm having an average day. I shouldn't be the brightest person here.
Right.
But everyone feels so, there's just a heaviness happening.
I agree. I mean, and it's interesting, you know, I've just been thinking about, and love to hear your thoughts about what, I mean, this is a very socially volatile time, just in terms of our social environment now. And, you know, just thinking about what are the ways that, you know, that theater, performance, storytelling can most effectively have an impact. Because I feel like there's a certain level where I see a certain level where there's even within, you know, that there's teams, you know, it's like, oh, we're telling our story. Oh, we totally agree. Oh, we totally agree. But like, how do you start creating an impact across kind of broad spectrums of people? And it's a really, I think it's a really important question right now.
It is.
And I think, I mean, one of the things I love about Hung Like a Seahorse is it's just it's your personal story. It's very personal. But to me, it just touches on so many things that are universal. And I love what you said about, you know, just finding your authentic self. And
It's never too late. Ever. It's never too late.
And the fact that I think too, you know, because I haven't done a solo show, and my work has been right. But my you know, my experience is with a script, and so the fact of bringing your personal story to the stage where you're up there and this is me, this is all. It's I mean, a really brave thing, and I wonder what was it like the very first. Like so it was what was your first
Learning to Stay.
Your very first solo show, kind of starting to tell your story in front of an audience. What was that like?
What a great question, and I've got a great answer because I thought I was ready. You know, I thought I was prepared. I had a script for that show. The last show, like I said, Hung Like a Seahorse, I did the last show with an outline, and Tech knew where I needed to be for certain things, but this time I have a script, so it's a different feel. But for Learning to Stay, I had a script, and I came out opening night. It was a Friday night, and I did the first 15-minute piece, which is very performance art-esque, if you will, but it gets people up to speed, and it's very jarring at the front, at the top. Did that, and then the lights go down, they come back up, and I'm doing this searching piece on the stage, and it's very, very physically based. I love being physically, you know.
Yeah.
This is my instrument. So I'm searching and I'm moving, and in stage time, it felt like, well, and it was a big white cloud of nothing, and I'm like, what's next? And then I just lost the script. I didn't know where to go. This is my story.
Yeah.
And I had written it, and it's my life, and I didn't know what was next. So in my head, I'm thinking, just tell the story in the order that makes sense of my life. And then I couldn't do that. Next thing I know, I felt like not 3 hours, but I felt like, oh my God, they're sitting there forever. And I literally, I think I just stopped, and I said, I looked right at the audience, and I said, I have to be completely transparent. I thought I was ready to do this show. I obviously am not. Maybe I'm scared of the trauma that's coming up, because I was actually very scared my dad was going to show up and kill me for telling my truth about the fact that he perpetrated me. So that was part of the fear. That wasn't in that moment, but that was in my body. So I just stood up, and my level of self-care in that moment was tell the truth. It feels like I've been waiting for 15 minutes now. It felt like a good 5 minutes of being lost and not knowing where to hook. And again, it's my story. I should know how to tell it, and I couldn't figure it out. So I was having a bit of a trauma response already. Then I stood up and I said to the audience, I said, well, I need to be completely transparent. I thought I was ready to tell this story, to do this show. I was as rehearsed as I could be, but obviously nothing's coming. This isn't at all what I had in mind for tonight. Please take care of yourself, get your money back at the door, and thank you for coming. And I left and went to the bathroom. This is at the Rail Yard Performance Center. That big, beautiful, yummy floor. Went in the bathroom. I'm just looking in the mirror. Just looking in the mirror with full of like shutdown and hate and fuzz and what's going on. Susan, my director, comes in. What are you doing? I go, I'm doing this is all I got. She's like, I don't care. You go out there. I said, no, are you glad you asked this question? She said, what are you doing? I go, I can't do it. She's like, yes, you can. It's your story. I go, nothing's coming. She's like, you didn't give it very long. I said, I was on stage. It felt like forever. She goes, that's stage time. And we're just like, bah, 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 bah. And we're kind of whispering, but not. But we're in the bathroom. And she goes, Quinn, I'm Kathleen at the time. No one's leaving. You got to go back out there. I said, I can't. Nothing's coming. I don't know how to do this show. She goes, you can use your script. I said, I can't use my script. They didn't come for a staged reading. So we've been best friends and creative partner for 15 plus years, and she's like, you can use your script. I said, no, well, you have to ask permission. She's like, ask what? I said, go ask them if they don't mind if I use the script. She's like, I'm not asking them. I said, then I'm not doing it. Go ask them. That's the right thing to do. They didn't come for a staged reading, right? It was $20 or something, and I'm like, that's not cool. So she walked out. She was so, and I've learned a ton from improv and everything from her. She's. So she walked out, told them what was going on. She had her book with her. Her script. She came back. She said, they said it's fine. They said it's fine. So she rips out to where we are, hands it to me, says, just go. Go. No one's leaving. Not a single person is getting up.
That's cool.
So I went back out there with the script, shaking, tears rolling down my face. And I said, before I even started working with the script, I said, again, this is not at all what I had in mind for tonight. I thought I was prepared and ready. Obviously, I'm having a bigger emotional response than I realized. What you need to do for your self-care, and please take care of yourself. No harm, no foul. Please go get your money back and take good care of yourself. No one got up. So then I started reading, and I said, and this was not planned, and it was totally a grace-filled God moment. I said, thank you for helping me learn to stay, and the title was Learning to Stay. And I said, more than that, thank you for letting me know it's okay to be seen in process. Because I've been a perfectionist my whole life. And so this was terror. This was terror. I would be as rehearsed as I could be and never even mess up in rehearsals to the best of my ability. This was a whole different gig. It was in the department of caca. And it was terrifying. And yet I'm being with it and no one's moving. And so I started and I said, thank you for letting me know it's safe to be seen in process. And, I'm shaking and I needed to point, I had the script here and I needed to point to each word because I wasn't in my body. I was a little dissociated and really shaky. And so I just started doing this. And the next thing I know, after about a paragraph tops, I was able to throw it off and it was back. So got through the show.
That's
and
great.
Found out afterwards, one guy was down from Lanel, from Poland, who said, Los Alamos National Laboratories, if you're watching from elsewhere, He was down. He was from Poland. He thought it was the most genius thing he'd ever seen because he thought that was in the show. And most everybody thought it was script. They thought that was in the show.
That's excellent.
And then they're like, you should put it in the show. It's not in the show. It should be in the show. And we thought about it for a couple seconds. I'm like, I don't want to relive that in any way. That is not in the show.
Yeah.
But what happened later, we went out for food afterwards, and just speaking to the truth of trauma and truth-telling. Mm-hmm. We're having dinner, and all of a sudden I realized I couldn't speak too well. Mm-hmm. And then my right arm started getting really numb, and I couldn't move my right arm. That's not the heart attack arm. That's the left arm. So it was the right arm. I was getting really numb. Then I really couldn't formulate words. Yeah. And so I did the best I could do this, and told Susan, my director, and my other friends, I'm like, guys, Susan, home, drive me. She drove me home. Had the most stellar, crazy headache I've ever had in my life. And that was it's because I pushed through and told the truth on stage for the first time, outside of a therapy setting, outside of treatment, outside of therapy, outside of a group session. It was the first time ever I went public with my story and disengaged from my story. And so it was a bit of a shame attack. It was a bit of a freeing, but it was also my whole body was afraid. You know, so that's the true.
I mean, that's incredible.
That's the true first story. Susan has 4 kids, and after that show, after that run, because the next night I got up and did it again, and the next night it worked. She said, I birthed my 5th kid this weekend. It was me. She felt like she was in labor all weekend.
Well, I mean, how great that that everyone stayed. I mean, that's a testament to what you had already built to that point.
Scott, thanks for saying that, because I hadn't thought of that. Everyone stayed. They were learning to stay too, in a really uncomfortable. Is this theater? Is this planned? Is this person having a meltdown? What is happening? We all learned to stay that night. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Oh, that is what an incredible story. And I love the fact that that one of the people thought, you know.
Oh, he's like, genius.
They got this incredible because I wondered when you all were in the bathroom, you know, people like, oh man, is this the, you know, is this
and they couldn't hear anything. Maybe you could hear a little bit.
Right.
But if it had been really in the show, we probably would have had the door open where they could really hear us, or we would have been loud.
Yeah.
But they waited. And then she went out and asked permission.
Yeah.
She was, Kathleen wants to know if it's okay. She told me to come out and ask permission if it's okay if she reads from the script. And everyone just sat there. And she's like, guys, for real.
Yeah.
We need permission to move on with the show.
Yeah.
Finally, someone said, yeah.
Yeah.
And then people were like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
So we didn't want it means for it to be interactive theater, but it was. But I don't need to recreate that moment ever again.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, the fact that they, and they stayed with you too. And I mean, and then as you found your way back, and what a great.
And the end of that show, just to say for people, you can go on my website and watch all of this for free. You can watch my shows for free. Yeah. At the end of that show, I actually have the baby doll that I had to have at treatment, because they wanted a lot of us that were really wounded to work with inner child dolls. Mm-hmm. And I rejected that outright until one girl left her doll behind in the trash, because I was more comfortable with the found object sculpture and everything. I got her doll, snuck it to my room, cleaned her up, painted her eyes, or colored them with a Sharpie brown. And anyway, I used that doll in the show. Mm-hmm. It's a real story. And at the end of the show, I treat the very end of the show as the community circle goodbye, which I did at treatment. I went to the Life Healing Center here in Santa Fe. And every night, my intention rather, was to cry. Organic tears, real tears. But if they didn't come, be at the next level closest to it without forcing anything. It has to be real. I don't do forcing. It has to be real. Because everyone can tell. Mm-hmm. Or you're acting like you're crying, but there are no tears. What's that, right? Mm-hmm. Or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So every night I said it would be lovely if I can reach that tonight. That's my intention. But whatever happens, I'll work with. And I just want it to be as real. And every night I was able to really cry as I had the baby, turned her around, and thanked each person in the audience as though they were in my community circle. Mm-hmm. When I'm leaving treatment, thanking them for helping me. It was profound. I mean, I'm so proud of that piece.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, there's really something, you just think about those, theatrical storytelling experiences that are really based in personal healing. And I mean, for me, one of my most rewarding experiences in theater was when my wife and I, it's a couple years after we'd moved here, and Lisa, my wife, had gotten involved with a production of the Vagina Monologues in Taos, which they did, and then they were going to bring it to Espanola, which is right near where we lived, the following year. And they were going to do it with the Tewa Women United, the Northern Indian Pueblos and Peacekeepers, which is a domestic violence prevention organization in Espanola. So so Lisa graciously invited me to be part of it, and so I ended up directing this production in Espanola, and we ended up just having everyone who auditioned in the show, and it was this. You talking about the age range? It was a 7-year-old up to an 80-year-old, but this just and a lot of them were survivors, domestic violence, and just that I'll never forget that. Just that palpable feeling in the theater of of sharing, something that's that personal, and the how important it is that the audience be with it and be.
It's life changing.
It's really for everybody watching. That's something
powerful.
You teach? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say something. I was in the Vagina Monologues when I was in female form. Powerful piece. And I've met Eve Ensler, and she's wonderful.
Oh gosh.
What was I going to say? What an interesting time to be transitioning from female to male. As a survivor of pre-verbal childhood sexual abuse at the hands of my dad in a female form, and now transitioning to male, from female to male, and passing all the time. Thank you for the starter kit sideburns and the baby beard. I don't shave too much because I might be called ma'am, and I can't risk that right now. But in the day and age of the Me Too movement, so to be a survivor and a thriver,
right,
and to be a conscious man, I'm actually not really comfortable calling myself a man yet. I am a trans guy. That feels really comfortable. I'm on a trajectory towards manhood. I get it, and I'll own that when it's right. Like, it still feels a little uncomfortable. Like, that might be the first time I've ever said it, but I kind of pulled it back gently because I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? But I've had women in public not say anything to me, but I'm pretty intuitive, and I've had women move a little away from me, especially right when the Me Too movement was happening, big time, when it started. And the energy I read was like, just another guy. What's he about? And so the old me would want to run up to them. I haven't done this, but the old me, unhealed, would want to run up to them, say, time out, no, I'm safe, I'm trans, I also have trauma, blah, 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 right? I don't have to do that. All I have to do is hold space for that. Wow. I'm being perceived as a potential perpetrator, rapist, violent person who happens to be male, becoming male. I just need to hold that. I need to hold that because what I want to bring forward is a real, true healing and reconciliation between the genders. Because it wasn't until I got to treatment here in Santa Fe, I was pissed. They put me in the co-ed group. I wanted to be in with the women. I was pissed. And they're like, you want to be in with the women because you're a sex and love addict. You want to pick the cutest woman in the group and just fixate on her mentally and not do your work. And I said, oh, you're right. So they called me out. I went in the co-ed group and I was pissed. But I sat in there and then I just warmed up to it. I was like, it's fine. These people are cool. But that was the truth. I wanted a fixation in group. I didn't want to focus on my work. I didn't want to do my nitty gritty trauma healing. So anyway, I'm in my co-ed group. This is 12 years ago here at the Life Healing Center in Santa Fe. And it was in that moment, one of the guys, not under his breath, we could hear it, but not everyone heard it. He said, that's just because women have it easier. And I said, whoa, time out. Excuse me, did everyone hear what Jim said? And no one did. And the facilitators didn't. And they didn't mind that I stopped. And I said, you guys, this is important. Jim, do you mind saying that again? He's like, I don't care. It's the truth. Women have it easier. I said, okay. Do all the guys in this room think the same? Duh, yeah. Like, it was all unanimous, right? I said, great. All the women, do you think the exact opposite? Do all the women in this room think that men have it easier? As just a blanket statement. And they all said emphatically, yes. I said, and I knew I was trans, but I hadn't transitioned yet. I wasn't brave enough. I had to do my trauma work first. And I was sitting in the middle holding space for this. And the facilitators were like, interesting. I said, this conversation is what needs to happen on this planet. I love that it's maybe can start happening in this room, but this in a culture that is mostly cis cis heteronormative, if you will. Most people tend to be cis and straight. And cis, by the way, is a prefix CIS, meaning cisgender. And it comes to us from biology. Because when people were saying trans this, trans that, they're transgender, blah, 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 they would say, oh, are they transgender or are they normal? And so that's obviously more than a microaggression. So we had to find a way, not me, but people in the community had to find a way to refer to non-trans people as not saying normal, because that's hurtful.
Right.
And so the word cis comes about from biology, I believe, and it means same. So, Scott, you were assigned male at birth, and you never questioned that. Okay, so you're cisgender. You're a cisgendered male.
Yeah.
I'm a transgendered male, because I questioned it from the minute I could question it.
Right,
you know. So anyway, that moment was pivotal for me. I didn't know it exactly, but I've never forgotten it, and now I know that that's part of my work is to help facilitate that conversation. What's been interesting is since my transition, I have more male friends in my inner circle that are heart-based lovers of, they're like brothers. Like they love me and get me, and there's nothing weird, there's nothing sexual, there's nothing but respect and love, and I've never had that. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because the whole transitioning with the Me Too thing, and my work is to hold space for that and really somehow bring in my spirituality, but also in my work with theater work and whatnot, help heal that divide.
Yeah, that's great.
Because think about it, if most couples are married, straight couples, not that most are married, but if that's kind of the goal to a lot of people, married straight couples, and if that's the underlying belief, if the man's thinking women have it easier and the woman's thinking men have it easier, look at how little, they're not starting at an even place. They're not even starting at a place of equanimity, and that's not even what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of, there's just already too much baggage, and it's societal. It's unhealed societal stuff through generations and generations.
Right, yeah. That's, well, it's that thing too, like, what we were saying earlier, about ways that we can, have an impact on. I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of division right now, but there's actually more understanding if we could all just get to a place where we could get to kind of what's underneath all of it, you know. I'm curious with the different ways as an artist that you've expressed yourself in the different artistic mediums that you've worked in. You teach improv, and I was just curious with where you are in your life journey now and where you are in your artistic journey. Just talk about what it's like to teach. To teach people.
Well, what's amazing is the teaching just fell in my lap. I had been studying for years and with different teachers, LA, here, other places, and I really lucked out too that I didn't have to do as many classes. I got in some really great shows. I got in a great show in LA and learned a ton from some Groundlings people. Oh my God, that was great. And I was just like a sponge. And here I got in, I was one of the original cast members of the show, which is at the Box in Albuquerque. It's now the longest running improv show in the state. And that was put together by a guy named Cody Dove. He grew up in Farmington, left right after, I believe, high school or college, and wanted to bring something back to the state. He left and went to Chicago for Second City. So now he travels the world with Second City, cruise ships and everything else. He wanted to bring something back to his home state. So he did. I almost did an audition. I thought I was too old. The casting call said 18 to 35, and I was probably 42 at the time, super depressed. My partner at the time said, get in the shower and I'm taking you. She drove me down to Albuquerque for the audition. I got in. So I was in the original cast. I was one of the four women and 4 men. I learned a ton. I healed my singing shame in that show because we had a keyboardist, very Second City-esque, a genius keyboardist, amazing. So I feel so privileged to have learned by being in shows and being under the direction of people that were top-notch. So I was a student here at the Adobe Rose drop-in Saturday class, and next thing I know, I started substitute teaching when some of the teachers couldn't be there. And then the next thing I know, it was just handed to me. And I was a little scared, but I was like, okay. Because I do trust that, I really have started to really trust that when things come, they're meant to come. And so it was a bit of a learning curve at first, but I'm loving it. I love teaching. I had no idea.
What's your favorite part about it? Is there a favorite part about teaching?
The thing about the Saturday class, I also teach privates and small classes here at my studio. That Saturday class, I never know who's coming. So it can be 6 people or 16 people. It can be total first time ever. They've wanted to come for 6 months. They're totally scared. They finally made it, but never done any improv. To some people that are really, really talented and cranky.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, teaching that class has made me such a better performer. Because I know how to handle the audience now. From that place of loving my students.
Yeah.
So now I always love my audience, but it's a different level of caretaking.
Yeah, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love it. I love seeing people take risks, and I love. So I keep saying I will, and I will soon. I'll take pictures before. I'm going to take pictures of each person before class and after, because the level of the opening, the brightness, the playfulness. People come in tired and droopy. I'm like, that's cool. That we check in a very real way at the top of class. I want to know how you're feeling. I want to know if your dog just died. What are you working for or with? That we can all hold space for you. Are you super happy you just got engaged or someone died? Let us know what's really going on, right? But if you're tired, name it and then be it. Come on stage and be tired. Surrender and be as exhausted as you can be, because I trust. Tell me, I just blah blah blah. I'm so excited I can't talk. Let's have a moment of silence for those people. No, you know this. If you surrender to it fully, what's underneath it comes next.
Yep.
What's next gets to really emerge.
Yes.
But if you're functioning above it, it can't. Whatever you're functioning above is obvious when you're really looking, right? Like, don't come on stage if you're pissed and not be pissed. We all see that you're angry.
Yes.
Be angry.
Yes,
Trust that that's okay. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
That's
I
cool.
create a very safe space. We've had classes where people on stage and in the audience, students are crying. They're so moved. Because the work I'm doing, I'm not saying it's improv comedy. That's not the class, because I don't want to chase the funny. Anything you chase runs away. And I have trauma. Don't chase me. And I don't want to be chased or chased. But anything we chase runs away. So it's really not about chasing the funny or going after a punchline or trying to be clever. I want people to drop into being states and essence work. Right. So it's deep.
That's cool.
It's deep work. And I get to see my students growing leaps and bounds. I'm a proud papa.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I know for me it was a huge revelation with improv. Initially, the first exposure I had to it years and years ago.
Was that back in New York?
No, this was back. I think there was some when I was living in DC, and I just had this fear around it because I don't feel like I'm inherently funny, and that was what I was afraid. I was like, improv is all about being funny and about being and I mean there are groups, classes that's what it's about. For me, it was eye-opening to finally have an improv experience where it's about, no, just be where you're at and just take where you're at and, like you said, fully sink into that. I mean, it's very cool. Yeah.
It's so rich.
And then you find
the funny will come.
Humor or pathos or all that stuff. Well, Quinn, I wanted to just kind of have ask you one last question here. When in kind of all of your different experiences, sharing your story in front of people, in all the different ways that you've explored it, is there kind of a moment or kind of particular moments or experiences that you can define that are like, this is why it's so important to me, why I have to keep doing this?
Wow, thank you for asking. I love your questions. So thoughtful and heart-based. I did the first 15 minutes of Learning to Stay as a part of a showcase here in Santa Fe. And it's intense and it's beautiful. It's a lot of things. And but it was very unexpected. One woman walked up to me afterwards, an older woman. She goes, "I expect to see you on Broadway." And I was like, okay, thank you. So that was amazing. Wow. And then I got other compliments. But one guy walked up to me. He was probably early 20s, soaking wet face with tears, beautiful blonde-headed, crazy hair guy, kind of hippie-esque dressed. He just walked up, and he couldn't talk. And I said, I just went like that. I was so moved. I just went like that to him. And he was trying to talk, and I said, "What's your name?" And he could mutter. He said, "Matthew." I said, "Matthew, thank you." And he just starts crying. And I said, may I give you a hug? And he nodded. So I gave him a hug. I ended up holding this young man as he sobbed and I held him as he sobbed and couldn't find the words. And I realized in that moment, I'm holding a demographic of humans that I've been scared of. I was 30-something at the time. No, I was 37, 38, 39 at the time. I was holding someone I was still scared of, the idea of. I'm holding him as he's so moved by my work and can't find the words. That was major. And then he pulled back and he explained. He said, "You told my story. That's my story. Thank you. Thank you." And I never saw him again, but I'll never forget that. I will never forget that, because it just showed me that telling my truth, because there's times when I'm not brave enough to tell my truth, and there are times I'm tired, or there are times I'm just scared. And what do I need most in those moments? I need other people to tell their truth, to remind me to keep telling mine, right? So when I'm tired, I'm going to look to you. I'm going to look to somebody else who's doing it and be reminded, yeah, that's where the power is. Not power, I'm stronger or better. Power, authentic, truth, freedom, right? So I'll never forget that. But just all those kinds of moments. And my favorite part of the last run, Hung Like a Seahorse show and tell version, I left the stage, came back out, bowed, ran off, went to the dressing room, got my water, came back out, and did a receiving line. I wanted to give and get a hug with every single person that wanted one.
Yeah, that's great.
And a lot of them did. Yeah. And I loved that. That was the most important part for me.
That's great.
To heart connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Quinn, this has been just a very inspiring and life-affirming conversation. I really appreciate your honesty and your truth. Yeah, it's been very inspiring.
Thank you, man.
So thank you.
We're both teary-eyed over here. You
yes,
can't see
I know.
it.
That's right.
You know why? Because real men cry.
That's exactly right.
And real men giggle. And real men love. We're going to heal this planet in our lifetime. Don't call me crazy. We are. I mean, we are.
I fully believe that. Yeah.
What's happening now? Can I just say this?
Yeah.
More people right now are considering themselves spiritual than ever before. More people right now are waking up, woke. Hello, woke is real. More people are getting involved with healing the planet. And we're coming in on a paradigm of love. It's happening now. One of my spiritual mentors says this, for anybody out there still struggling with our current administration, one of my spiritual mentors only refers to him as 45. And he says we have to turn to numerology to find the hope. 45, 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 is the end of a cycle. He was also elected in 2016. 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 6 is 9. End of a cycle. When did he first start serving? 2017. That adds up to 10, which adds up to 1. Newness, new thing, everything new. So it's the end of patriarchy as we know it. It's the end of greed as we know it. It's the end of the system as we know it. So it is crumbling, it is dying, and it has to, because something else is being birthed. It's also the age of Aquarius. Everything, it's easy to get scared, guys. I get it. I get it. The night of the election, I thought, no way, this isn't happening. Went to sleep, woke up with a start at 3 a.m. It's like, that didn't happen. Checked my phone. It did. My first thought was, I have to detransition. I can't be trans in this culture, in this time. And then my next thought was, I can't leave the house. I deal with agoraphobia on occasion. I can't leave my house today. I'm on lockdown. Then my next thought was, that's not true. No. Get up, meditate, reach out to people, go to your early recovery meeting, tell the truth. I told the truth with tears running down my face that I was scared, that I was thinking about detransitioning, all of that. All day long, I just went to recovery meetings and hung around people that were like-hearted, like-minded. And at the end of the night, and the magic here is that our trans support group in Santa Fe that only meets twice a month was meeting that night. So I got to go be with my trans and gender nonconforming brothers and sisters and tell my truth. And by the end of the day, I was more committed than ever to, I'm staying, this is who I am. It's taken me 50 years to embrace this. Yeah. At the time, it was 48 years. It's taken me this long to embrace this. I'm not going to ever shut up. I'm not ever going to stop telling the truth. I'm not ever going to stop loving people. I'm not ever going to stop being an optimist. Yeah, there are days when I get scared and overwhelmed and it doesn't look bright. But I really believe that we are here. We each are here. I could go on and on and on, but I'll just end on this. Every single soul, if you believe in reincarnation or not, just hear me out. I do. I believe in reincarnation. It just resonates as true for me. Every single soul doesn't get to come back instantly. We plead our cases to whatever we do that to. I don't know, higher source, force, whatever. But think about it. We plead our cases. I know I didn't plead a case saying, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to be lost. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be a chronic relapser. I'm going to be suicidal all my life. I'm going to not partake, not give, not love. I'm just going to hang out and be scared and unhealed. That wasn't my pact. My pact was I'm going to come in and have a lot of challenges, and I'm going to meet them and greet them and let other people know they can do the same. That's all it is. I'm bipolar. I'm PTSD. I'm treatment resistant severe depression. Those don't define me. They inform my level of self-care. That's all they do. Some days I need to really look at certain issues versus others. And that's true for everybody. We have a unique list of challenges, but you're here on purpose. I'm here on purpose. I never got that till recently. And you are too, Scott. May I shake your hand on air?
Powerful. Thank you. Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you. I'm so blessed.
And thank you all for joining us. And just a little housekeeping here, just to let you know that you can see these interviews in their entirety on our Ironweed Productions Facebook page. So please like us and follow us on Facebook. We do announce our interviews on that page as well. And Theater Santa Fe has also kindly posted all of our interviews on their website, on their community tab. We have a little link, Talking Theater Live, so you can check it out there, as well as the many other things that they provide on their website supporting theater in Santa Fe. Also, if you have not seen it, please go see Hung Like a Seahorse at Warehouse 21, August 23rd through the 26th. It's a wonderful, life-affirming show. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Quinn.
Can I end with this? Bebaste. My inner baby sees your inner baby, and all is truly well. Bebaste.
Excellent. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Good night.